Faith is but one vanity among others, and the art of deceiving man about the nature of the world. With these words, Albert Caraco revealed the raw essence of his philosophy. Unlike many thinkers who wrapped their ideas in poetic illusions or gentle optimism, Caraco chose a brutal honesty. His words do not comfort, they cut, they wound, they disturb, and yet they also awaken. They challenge us to look at the world without filters, without lies, without the sweet consolations that religions, societies, and traditions so often provide. But who was Albert Caraco? Why did he dedicate his life to exposing the illusions of human existence? And why, decades after his death, do his words continue to haunt and disturb those who dare to read them? In this video, we will explore the life, philosophy, and legacy of Albert Caraco, a man who saw in existence not beauty or meaning, but chaos, cruelty, and inevitable decay. A man who believed that the only truth worth facing was that life itself is an imposition, and death the only release. Early life and restless wanderings. Albert Caraco was born on July 10, 1919, in Istanbul, into a Sephardic Jewish family. His parents carried with them a long and complex history, rooted in both the Middle East and Eastern Europe. But Caraco's childhood was anything but stable. His family moved constantly, from city to city, from Prague to Berlin, and later to Paris, always fleeing from the political storms and persecutions that marked the first half of the 20th century. This instability left a deep scar on young Albert. For him, the world never felt secure, never felt like home. Every place was temporary, every safety fragile, every belonging an illusion. When the Second World War broke out, his family fled once more, this time to Montevideo, Uruguay, in an attempt to escape the violence and chaos of Europe. There, in a gesture of survival rather than conviction, the family converted to Catholicism. But Albert saw through the gesture immediately. For him, conversion was just another mask, another act of hypocrisy, a way to escape danger, but not to confront reality. From a young age, Albert was deeply intellectual. He was fluent in French, English, German, and Spanish. He read widely, wrote incessantly, and thought with a sharpness that unsettled even those close to him. Yet unlike many thinkers who dreamed of reaching large audiences, Caraco knew his books were not for everyone. They were written for those few willing to stare into the abyss, to endure the most uncomfortable truths about existence. Dissolution and chaos, the core of his thought. At the center of Albert Caraco's philosophy lies one word: chaos. For him, everything, from human societies to religions, from families to civilizations, was destined to collapse. Nothing endures, nothing holds meaning. Life, according to him, is not a gift, but a sentence, an imposition, unfair and cruel, placed upon us without our consent. The idea that life has a meaning, he wrote, is only an illusion created by man to bear the unbearable. This position might sound extreme, but for Caraco it was not speculation, it was lived reality. He had witnessed wars, forced migrations, persecution, and instability. He saw societies crumble, families fracture, and illusions fall apart. For him, the brutality of history confirmed his darkest convictions. Human existence is not built on progress or meaning or morality, but on violence, chaos, and death. And if religions tried to offer comfort, he dismissed them with cold contempt. Faith, he wrote, is but one vanity among others, and the art of deceiving man about the nature of the world. For Caraco, religion was not salvation but a lie a desperate human attempt to cover over the abyss with false promises. The family as the first prison. One of Caraco's most provocative claims concerned the family. For him, family was not a refuge, not a source of love or support, but the first laboratory of human suffering. In the family, he argued, the individual is shaped, conditioned, and forced to adapt to a society that is already corrupt and inhuman. His reflections became even more personal after the death of his mother, which he documented in one of his most important works, Post Mortem. Their relationship had been a storm of love, anger, and resentment. For Caraco, his mother symbolized the very act of being forced into existence. She brought me into the world, and I hate the world. To him, family was not love, but coercion, not support, but the first chain binding us to suffering. It was within the family that humans were first bent, broken, and molded into beings destined for torment. Society, institutions, and the illusion of order. Caraco's critique did not stop at family. It extended to society itself. Society, in his view, is nothing more than an infernal machine, a desperate attempt to impose the appearance of order on what is at its core chaos. Institutions such as politics, economics, and morality do not solve the chaos of existence, they only multiply it. Religion, as we have seen, he called a lie. Politics he dismissed as a game of power. Economics he saw as a machinery of inequality and exploitation. Morality he regarded as fragile conventions, unable to withstand the cruelty of reality. Chaos and death are the only rulers of this world, he declared, and every human construction, no matter how noble it appears, only adds more layers of suffering to the already unbearable burden of existence. Reproduction, the perpetuation of suffering. Perhaps the most shocking part of Caraco's philosophy lies in his views of reproduction. For him, the act of bringing new life into the world was not a joy or a blessing, but a crime, a profound irresponsibility. Our destiny is to continue to multiply, only to die innumerable, he wrote, underlining the absurdity of perpetuating life when life itself is nothing but suffering. He believed that procreation was the way suffering renewed itself generation after generation. Every child born was another victim, another prisoner condemned to endure the cruelty of life without ever having asked for it. Caraco's solution was as radical as it was terrifying. The only way to break the cycle of suffering was for humanity to voluntarily stop reproducing. In 1 or 2 generations, he argued, all human problems would end. This vision is extreme, even unbearable for many. But in Caraco's logic, it was consistent. If life is suffering, why perpetuate it? Solitude and the failure of human relationships. For Caraco, even human relationships, love, friendship, companionship, were illusions. He saw individuals as monads, closed entities incapable of truly communicating with one another. Every attempt to connection, he believed, was destined to fail and to generate new forms of suffering. Therefore, solitude was the only authentic state. Only in isolation, only in silence, could a person truly confront the nothingness at the heart of existence. Life, death, and final coherence. Caraco's philosophy was not just abstract, he lived and died by it. In September 1971, his father died. True to a promise he had made years before, Caraco took his own life only hours later. For him, death was not defeat, but coherence, the logical conclusion of his worldview. His death mirrored his life, uncompromising, radical, and faithful to the principles he had defended with such ferocity. Legacy and contemporary relevance. Today, Albert Caraco remains a marginal figure in philosophy. His works are not widely read, and his name is not as celebrated as Nietzsche, Camus, or Sartre. Yet for those who encounter him, his impact is unforgettable. He is often described as the philosopher of chaos or the prophet of dissolution. His words are brutal, but they force us to ask questions we might not otherwise avoid. What if our lives are built on illusions? What if society is only a mask for chaos? What if reproduction is not a gift, but a curse? These are questions few dare to ask, and even fewer dare to answer. But Caraco asked them relentlessly, and his words continue to resonate with anyone willing to look at existence without consolation. Caraco's philosophy is not easy to read, nor easy to accept. It is dark, harsh, and merciless. Most philosophers seek to offer answers, a path to meaning, a sense of order, a way to reconcile ourselves with the world. Albert Caraco did the opposite. His words stripped away illusions, burned away hope, and revealed a vision of existence so raw, so merciless, that even today, half a century after his death, they remain unbearable to many. Faith is but one vanity among others, and the art of deceiving man about the nature of the world. With this single sentence, Caraco announced his rebellion against everything human beings hold dear: faith, family, society, morality, even life itself. For him, all these were not noble truths, but lies we tell ourselves in order to survive. His philosophy was a philosophy of dissolution, a dismantling of illusions, a radical confrontation with chaos. But who was Albert Caraco? How did his experiences shape this vision of the world? And what lessons, if any, can we draw from his disturbing legacy? A life of exile and restlessness. Albert Caraco was born in Istanbul in 1919, the only son of a Sephardic Jewish family whose roots traced back to both the Middle East and Eastern Europe. From the very beginning, his life was marked by instability. His family never stayed long in one place. They lived in Prague, Berlin, Paris, and other cities, always on the move, always unsettled, always fleeing from the political storms that darkened the first half of the 20th century. For young Albert, this meant there was no true home, no lasting refuge. Every city could vanish, every safety could collapse, every belonging was temporary. Life itself felt unstable, chaotic, and fragile. When the Second World War broke out, the family fled once again, this time to Montevideo, Uruguay. There, in an act of survival, they converted to Catholicism. But for Albert, this was not faith, it was convenience. To him, it revealed a fundamental hypocrisy. Religion was not truth, but a mask worn to escape fear. Caraco grew up with an extraordinary education. He mastered French, German, English, and Spanish. He read philosophy, theology, literature, and history with a voracious hunger. He began to write early and would eventually publish dozens of works, though most would reach only a small audience. His writing was never meant to console the masses. It was aimed at those rare readers willing to confront the darkest truths without flinching. The philosophy of chaos. At the heart of Caraco's philosophy is a single, brutal conviction: existence is chaos. For him, the universe has no order, no meaning, no guiding purpose. Human beings, desperate to make sense of this abyss, invent illusions, religions, morals, philosophies, ideologies. But these illusions cannot change the truth. They can only hide it. In Caraco's words, life is an imposition, not a choice, and for this reason it is intrinsically unfair. With this single sentence, Caraco announced his rebellion against everything human beings hold dear: faith, family, society, morality, even life itself. For him, all these were not noble truths, but lies we tell ourselves in order to survive. His philosophy was a philosophy of dissolution, a dismantling of illusions, a radical confrontation with chaos. But who was Albert Caraco? How did his experiences shape this vision of the world? And what lessons, if any, can we draw from his disturbing legacy? Religion, the grand illusion. Caraco's attack on religion was relentless. He saw faith as humanity's most seductive lie, the ultimate attempt to cover the abyss with a painted curtain. Religion promised meaning, order, morality, and salvation. But for Caraco, these promises were nothing but vanity. Faith is but one vanity among others, and the art of deceiving man about the nature of the world. This was not just a critique of one tradition, but of all: Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. In his eyes, they were equally guilty of deception. They invited human beings to believe in a higher order, a cosmic justice, a divine plan. Yet Caraco argued none of these could stand against the evidence of suffering, decay, and death. The family, the first prison. If religion was the great illusion, the family was the first prison. Caraco considered the family to be the source of all suffering, the first laboratory in which human beings are broken and bent to fit into a corrupt society. His reflections were shaped by his own experience. After the death of his mother, he wrote Post Mortem, one of his most personal and brutal works. In it, he confessed to both love and hatred, tenderness and rage. For him, his mother symbolized the imposition of life itself. She brought me into the world, and I hate the world. Through the family, a person is conditioned to accept society's lies, to adapt to roles, obligations, and expectations that only perpetuate suffering. For Caraco, the family was not refuge, but coercion, not love, but the first chain binding us to existence. Society and its masks. Beyond the family, Caraco turned his critique toward society as a whole. Society, in his view, is nothing more than a desperate attempt to cover chaos with a fragile mask of order. Institutions, politics, economics, morality, law are not solutions to disorder. They are distractions from it. He saw politics as a game of power, morality as a fragile convention, economics as a machinery of exploitation, and culture as a collection of empty performances. Every attempt to impose order, he believed, only multiplied suffering, because at the core, reality remained the same: chaotic, fragile, destined for dissolution. Reproduction, the renewal of suffering. Perhaps the most controversial part of Caraco's thought was his view of human reproduction. For him, bringing new life into the world was not an act of love or hope. It was a crime. Our destiny is to continue to multiply, only to die innumerable, he wrote, underlining the absurdity of perpetuating a cycle of suffering. Every child born was another prisoner of life, another victim condemned to endure chaos without having chosen it. Caraco believed that humanity could only find release if it chose not to reproduce. If people stopped having children, he argued, within 1 or 2 generations, the entire human problem would be solved. This idea, called antinatalism today, was not unique to Caraco, but few expressed it with such radical clarity. For him, the greatest gift humanity could give itself was extinction. Solitude and the failure of communication. Caraco did not believe in love, friendship, or even genuine communication. Human beings, he argued, are like monads, closed entities incapable of truly connecting with one another. Every attempt at intimacy, he believed, ends in misunderstanding, disappointment, or suffering. The only authentic state, therefore, was solitude. To live alone, to embrace isolation, was the only honest response to existence. Death as consistency. Caraco's philosophy was not mere theory. It was lived. In September 1971, after the death of his father, Caraco kept the promise he had made years earlier. Within hours, he took his own life. To him, this was not despair, but coherence. His death was not a contradiction of his philosophy, but its fulfillment. If life was an imposition, then death was release. If reproduction was a crime, then extinction was mercy. His suicide was, in his eyes, an act of integrity. Legacy of a dark prophet. Albert Caraco never reached the fame of Nietzsche, Camus, or Sartre. His books were published in small numbers, often ignored, sometimes condemned. Yet for those who encounter him, his impact is unforgettable. He is remembered as the philosopher of chaos and the prophet of dissolution. His writings are difficult, even unbearable, but they challenge us in ways few others dare.